Okay. All right. So we are live, and today I've got with me Shayla and Michael. How are you both doing?
Very good, thank you.
Good, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great.
Greetings from Canada.
From Canada. And Shayla, you're in Croydon, aren't you?
Croydon, yeah.
Croydon, yes.
South
So,
London.
now, Michael, you've been here before, so I know that you do a
Yes.
bit of arranging with the choir. Have you done any arranging before, Shayla?
There was one. There was one attempt many years ago,
Okay. Well, that's fine. You know, we all have
and
to
then
start
I never
somewhere.
tried again.
Well, what did you find easy about it? What did you find hard about it? Why did you stop?
Oh, I think I'd never done it before, and I just had very I'd not really done music theory either before. I had a
Right.
very basic knowledge of it,
Okay.
and so it just a sort of very basic error in terms of arranging the male parts.
Yeah. It's
The female parts were okay, but the male parts were all
yeah.
wrong.
It's tricky because there's a lot of kind of stuff that you kind of need to know about when it comes to arranging, and of course the ranges is one thing you can't really get away from. And then there's stuff like, do you know the harmonic theory? Do you know all that stuff? And people also work in different ways. So I usually work by writing stuff out, but of course some people work by ear, and then they might do, they might still have some knowledge of the harmonics theory, or they might just pick out stuff and then slot them together, just testing stuff out. So there's a lot of different ways to do it, and I think especially if you haven't done a lot of arranging, you might not know what really is the way you prefer to work. So again, because I'm such an old-fashioned arranger, I do it in writing mostly. But okay, so today we are going to be putting everything together that we looked at in the previous sessions, and we're going to be arranging a song, not exactly from start to finish, because I've already written out the some details in the music. So I'm going to share my screen with you now so you can see. Hang on, so I've got my... so I'm going to show my desktop and my computer sound. So, can you see my Sibelius now?
Yes.
You too, Shella?
Yeah.
Okay, just so we avoid any technical issues, I am going to... these are always in the way. I'll just leave them there. Can you hear this?
Yeah.
You can hear the beautiful MIDI piano sound?
Yes.
Excellent. Yeah, okay. So, the song we're arranging is called Beneath Your Beautiful. It's by singer Labrinth and Emeli Sandé. And I've already kind of written out, so this is typically how I start. I will write out a very basic transcription. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see a little bit more up close. So I've got I've got some just like top notes of the piano part in the beginning. Then I have the melody, and I've just written male here to remind myself that this is the male part, as we've got a duet. And I've just kind of written in stuff that I think is important. Now, I also wrote some chord symbols at the top, so I remember what the harmony is. And if there's anything happening in the background, here, for instance, there was a little nice string line that I thought I could write that down, just so that I remember it while I'm working. So, if we think that, okay, I've listened to the song a lot, I know it, I kind of have some idea of how I might arrange it. So what do I normally do after I've kind of gone through this process of learning the song? What tends to be my first thing?
Well, one question, are those harmonies the harmonies from the pop song, or are those ones that you've chosen?
So these are the harmonies from the song. I've not reharmonized it at all. We'll probably end up doing some reharmonization, but we'll talk about it when that happens. Yeah, these are from the track.
Well, seeing what you've done before, I would guess that you would then map out the song with all your dynamics, as well as probably sharing around the vocals to the different voice parts.
Yeah, exactly. So the first thing I'll do is I'll be thinking about how is this song going to be developing dynamically. And that's the way I tend to do this is with my trusty old dynamics graph. So let me see if I can get my whiteboard. Here, can you see this? So I just do this as a, as a graph, as a literal graph, like so, very pretty, where the bottom will be PP, and the top will be FF on the y-axis, and then on the x-axis will be duration. So that'll be verse 1, pre-chorus, chorus, verse 2, pre-chorus, chorus, bridge, and then there's a few choruses at the end. But okay, so we have, and again I've got this issue where I'm drawing with my trackpad, but verse 1, pre-chorus 1, chorus 1, and then verse, pre-chorus, looks like a D, P, C, bridge. And again, this just helps me make a plan. I don't have to stick with it, but just having a plan avoids this thing where you get to a point in the arrangement and you're not sure what's going to happen next. I don't know, once you get that initial spark of of inspiration, if that goes, then you still need to have a plan so you can know that, okay, well, I know roughly how I'm going to be developing this. So this is a ballad. So my instinct is to start quietly and build up towards the chorus. Choruses tend to be kind of a good place to go loud. It's the sort of the big memorable bit. So if I think, okay, chorus 1, we can actually, do you guys agree with me? We don't have to do this. We could have a quiet chorus. We could have a loud, verse. What do you think?
I think you can always do whatever you want. I would tend to possibly, I don't know the song really well, but maybe a quiet chorus at the beginning and then building towards the end.
Yeah, okay, well, we can try and do that. Why not? Let's have, maybe not quite double P, but we could have just a quiet chorus. And should we have a pretty loud... I'm going to just say that we should probably not have a loud... If we're going up to the chorus, we can keep it quiet. Maybe all the way through verse 1, pre-chorus 1, chorus 1. Maybe step it up a bit for verse 2, like so. Does that sound like a reasonable approach?
Mm-hmm.
And then where do we want to build up to? Should we build up to the second chorus? Should we build up to the bridge? The bridge in this song is actually a big... is a bit of a climax. So maybe we'll try and do like a steady rise where we're going up, up, and then the bridge will be quite loud. And then they do drop down quite a lot when they get to the final chorus. And they have this whole like ad-lib battle at the end. So maybe we'll go a bit louder again and then drop out maybe, I don't know, just kind of like so, for instance. Does that look like a good start?
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, again, this can change. We'll decide, actually, I want the first chorus to be loud. Actually, I think this verse needs to be a bit more quiet. And, this is just so that you have something to refer back to if you ever lose your inspiration and you're like, ugh, what do I do now? And this dynamic graph helps you also when it comes to distributing the melody. Because if you want a quiet section, what's a good part of the range of the singers to put the song in?
Into the male parts?
Or, just if I'm talking about
lower range of the voice. Yeah.
Lower range tends to be easier to do quietly. So you can put it high and have it quiet. It just requires a lot more work from the singers. And I tend to kind of go through for the path of least resistance, if you will. Also because normally when I'm working with London contemporary voices, we have about 50 songs to learn over the course of like 10 weeks. But you're familiar with this, aren't you, Shola?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have so much material to learn. It's just like, let's just make it as easy as possible because we don't have time. So yeah, I tend to kind of put quiet bits in the low voice and then loud bits in the high voice. So I'll then know, okay, well I got my verse 1, pre-chorus 1, chorus 1. That would probably be low range areas. And that helps me map out the song as well, because I need to choose a key. I might not want to put it in the same key as Labrinth and Emeli Sandé did. I might want a different chorus, a different key. Same with once I get to the loud bits, I got to make sure that's going to be up there and banging and in your face. So I got to choose a range where that will work. Okay, so let's go back to my score, because what's useful about writing out the score like I've done is, can you see my score again? Can you see my score, Shayla?
Yeah.
Good. So what's useful about having written this out is I can then see what is the range of the song. Now maybe I should actually change this back. I wrote them when I had them, the female part, I wrote it as I would for an alto. And when I had the male part, I wrote it as I would for, say, a tenor. I should probably change that so that they're all at pitch. Because, effectively, it doesn't really matter where you put them in range here, because that's gonna change. Because it does go about as high as a high D towards the end, I think. The highest note I found it's towards the end somewhere. Essentially, he goes up to a high D. It's kind of an optional note. I think the highest note that you need is maybe about a B or an A in the middle of the clef. So like there or there, there-ish. That's kind of when Emeli Sandé does. That's where she does her high bits. So I'll know. Okay, most likely, when I do my loud choruses, I'll want everyone to sing the words together, probably in block harmony, and then I'll choose, right, where should the melody sit. Usually when you do pop music and you do something that has that kind of sound, it's useful to put the melody in the middle part and then have a harmony above and a harmony below. So if I take that as one hallmark of maybe my second chorus, because that's going to be a climax. Go back to my second chorus here, there, and I'll put that in the alto part. Just for now, because I'll be needing to see how does this work with this melody. Do I need to move it up? Do I need to move it down? Just to help me choose the key. I'll not worry about it. That shouldn't be there, but we'll worry about it later. Okay, so it looks to me it goes up to that B. So that for a lower ability choir, I probably wouldn't want to write the alto part much higher than, say, that B. Then some of them, could give it a bit more power, but you're kind of getting close to where, pop singers would want to do belt singing, and not every singer, can belt. So it
should.
Yeah, or should. It depends. Is it appropriate for the music? Is it the sort of singer, that they are? I see one more person is trying to join us. So you gotta have a think about what is appropriate for the music. Hello, Francesco. Hi. Good, nice of you to join us.
Sorry, I'm late.
Oh, that's fine. We are currently arranging Beneath Your Beautiful by Emeli Sandé and Labrinth. Are you familiar with the song?
Not really.
Okay.
No,
well, you can listen and take notes and ask questions anyway, and we'll, let me know. Okay, so right now we're choosing key, and I think probably I wouldn't want to put it much higher if I'm going for my melody in the middle and then sopranos and tenors harmonizing. And for this arrangement, we're not going to be using an accompanist. We're just going to have acappella, which means that all the accompaniment parts have to come from the singers. So if I decide, okay, I want to have the melody in the altos here, I want them all to be loud, I want to have the sopranos harmonizing above and the tenors below, I probably can't move this too much higher, maybe a tone up at most. Okay, so that's my climax. Now we go back to, and you weren't here when I made this, Francesco, but I made what I call a dynamics graph.
Okay.
Where I'll show you once it, come on, share it. Let us see it. Where I mapped out roughly what sort of dynamic development I want to have in the song, with this being the quietest and this being the loudest. So I decided my second chorus, which is here, I'm going to do 3-part three-part harmonies with the melody in the middle, and then sopranos and tenors harmonizing. And that's a very usual approach in gospel music. You put the altos up in their high range, maybe up to belting if you've got those kind of singers, but we'll not push them quite that high today. So that'll be my double F moment. Now let's look back at my quietest moment, which will be maybe verse 1, pre-chorus 1, and find a place we can put that in. And this will help us choose key. So let's go back to this very start. Now, I actually found when Labrinth sings this, he sings this in a baritone range. He sings it basically around where the basses would want to sing it. So if I take my first chorus and just put it into the basses for now, just to check how it sits in their range. Yeah, there. Now this is quite a good baritone range. It doesn't go too low, it goes down to that A. Doesn't go too high. I think this would be a suitable sort of bass melody moment. It would be a bit low for tenors. It could be fine for altos up the octave. It doesn't, again, sopranos and tenors are kind of paired. They can sing the same line octaves apart, and altos and basses can sing the same line octaves apart. And I think this will sound quite rich and nice down there. And then as you were mentioning before we went live, Shayla, when you were doing your first arrangement, you weren't quite sure about the ranges, for instance, of the male parts, because because you're a female singer, you can check the female parts, and of course I've got the opposite problem where I can always check, because I'm very much a mid-range singer. I can check, does this start to feel tough for me going down? Okay, well that's probably a good cutoff point for most male singers, and then if you have someone who's like a true bass, they can go lower. But of course, most people aren't basses or tenors or altos or sopranos. Most people are mid-range singers. So it always helps to think of putting the majority of the notes in the mid-range. Now I can tell you that, we wouldn't want to have it go much lower than maybe the G, F sharp under here. So I think this would be actually quite a good key. Just thinking what's the quietest moment and what's the loudest moment. It sits nicely in the bass here. And I even noticed while I was writing it out that with the chorus, which is here, goes up to a G, which is, or even an A here, or a B. Now it's probably just about too high for the tenors. But if I put it down a bit, maybe, actually, you know what? Let's leave it there, because I could also put it perhaps in the sopranos, who would be, so normally if you have a group of pop singers, the alto section tends to be kind of more willing to do big pop gospel belt and stuff, and the sopranos, because they're more used to being made to sing high and often quiet, they're more used to doing the more classical tilt approach, which means that they can sing higher and quieter, but it does get a very different kind of sound. It doesn't sound maybe as much like a pop singer on the radio. So maybe if I put this melody, which would be too high for tenors in their range, and would be, I dare say, maybe not right for altos in their range, because they'd be tempted to enter their power range, if you will. If we put this in the sopranos in the same range, and this just comes from my knowledge of working with singers over the years, this line in the sopranos, again, it goes a bit low here, but we could perhaps change that a little bit. We'll see. But this would sound not too loud out of a soprano, of someone who's used to singing soprano. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Again, this just comes from knowing that with the higher singers, they have more flexibility with their dynamics in their high range than, say, the lower singers. I think just looking at this, and I'm just going to map out who will be singing it where. I think we'll probably keep this key, because it seems to me like it fits the requirements of my dynamics graph. So then I'll have decided, okay, so I'll just keep it in the original key. Keep it in B major. Right. So I've chosen my key. I've made a rough plan for the dynamics. What should I do next? No
We
suggestions?
map out who sings where.
Yeah, exactly. Now I need to decide who has the melody where. And there'll be two things to keep in mind here. It'll be make sure that everyone has something fun to do. I'm quite fond of giving the basses the melody early on because it tends to be quiet and it's a good moment to give the melody to the basses. But I also want to make sure that the tenors get a moment, the altos get a moment, the sopranos get a moment. No one should be singing do-do-dos for the whole arrangement or just the same line over and over. And I'll have to think about range. So, okay, we've had the basses here, and this would be a piano, so quiet moment. So just remove this because it's not simple. So let's say this is P. And again, I'm just going to leave these chord symbols on it because we'll use them when we're harmonizing later on. Okay, now for the next section, it would perhaps be a good moment. We would, because I've given the bassist the melody here, not have had any real like bass line happening before the pre-chorus. So maybe here it would be a good time to give it to the tenors perhaps. It goes down to a D, which is a good low note for the tenors, and it's not going to get too loud. This will sit quite nicely in the tenor range if they're not, singing loudly. And goes down to D and goes up to C sharp. Yeah, easy. And then we'll mark that MP. No, well, actually, let's mark it P. Why not? There'll be like a slight change of timbre because we've gone from the bass singer singing to the tenor singing. And then we'll also have a bass line happening here, which we'll talk about in a bit. Okay. And then I'll want to have the sopranos here. We could even block harmonize this. That'll be quite nicely, but like quiet block harmonies. That might be nice. But I think it should be led, in quotation marks, led by the sopranos. And what I mean by that is they have the melody and they take precedence and every other part will be kind of secondary to them. They sing, for now I'll just leave the whole thing there. Much use to spread it out a bit more. Then we have a little backing part, which I thought was cool. I can't quite sing it right now. But, right, so this one's a little, where would I put this? It's just about okay for the altos. It's maybe a bit low. Sopranos are doing here, and it could get a bit high for them. So this is a slightly awkward line in that sense. I could put it in the tenors, maybe. I'll have to think. I might have to. So when I've got this problem, where it doesn't quite fit any of the parts exactly the way I want to, I might have to distribute it around a bit differently or use a different approach. But we'll talk about that when we get to it. Okay, so in the original, verse 2, this is when Emeli Sandé does her verse. Now we want to step it up a notch. We've been kind of going quiet. I didn't write in a dynamic here, but I reckon I'll probably want to write in MP. And then this will be the MF moment. Now we're kind of stepping things, shifting a bit more into gear. That was not supposed to go there. Oh yeah, I see. So then, who would be good to put it in here? Goes up to an A and down to a low A. So it sits between those
Probably altos.
Altos could be a good option. And then we'll have some nice harmonies below. Emeli Sandé is definitely an alto singer. She goes down to a low E in this song, and it sounds great. Yeah, I think altos would be a good choice. Let's put it up there.
Do you have a guideline as a general sort of lowest note for altos? That's one place I'm never quite sure of.
Well, I will consider, as I said, I kind of consider them paired with the basses, and I tend to cut off basses around this G. But if I'm writing for kind of more true basses, people who are stronger in their low range, I can make them go down maybe to this E, D-ish. And I think writing much lower than an E in the alto part is not useful in a mixed choir. If you have an all-female choir, then you can allow yourself a lot more space, but I tend to keep them above G, F sharp, there-ish.
Yeah, I try not to go below G. That's been my rule, but I'm never sure with altos. Same as the top range. I try not to go above a C.
Yeah, above a C. Do you mean this? Oops, that C.
And usually that only if they're singing with other people, if everyone's on melody or something.
Yeah, I see. Well, it'll depend greatly from choir to choir. I think it's better to be safe than sorry when it comes to this kind of stuff. So I'd say G is a good cutoff point, and then you've got to know that your singers can go lower. So in this case, it goes down to an A. Okay. Yeah, it's definitely, it's just about going to work MF. We might have to accommodate a bit in the other parts, but let's say that we put it in the altos for now. Now this goes really low in the original. Maybe here it goes up to... Actually, this would be a good one to put in the tenors, I think. And I will show you how that would work. Yeah, so now, still a bit low, but kind of okay. Yeah, now here we're getting up into a big high tenor range. And now we could distribute them more. We'll see. I'm kind of basically deciding here's where the tenors get a little bit of a moment. And here we have block harmonies, as we decided before. That'll be F. And the pre-chorus, the little bridge here, we'll deal with that later. And then here is the big, super loud moment. And I think here as well, probably altos, sopranos, tenors, and block harmonies, high range. Yeah. I wrote this wrong. There. Now, you don't have to follow, when you do stuff in block harmonies, you don't have to follow the melody exactly. For instance, here, I'm gonna do 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 do. You could easily just have them sing in chords without doing these intervals, because they might end up sounding a bit awkward in block harmony, but it will still sound fine as a group. And we'll have a closer look at it, but I think this will be fine for the bridge. And then it drops down to a very quiet chorus. And then I changed things a little bit, because I realized that the very last chorus was a lot of them just kind of having an ad-lib battle, and that's maybe not the best for a choir. So I decided I'm going to just have the chorus twice, essentially. So if we wanted to stay loud here, maybe this will be a good moment. Maybe this will be a good moment to put it in the tenors. Maybe. I think, again, just looking at it on the staff, it looks like a big, actually, no, it'll be too, no, let's try it. I don't know what I did here. This is wrong. Sorry, I'm going to clean up the notation a bit. But girl, I'll have to recheck what I did there. Let's put it here. Stand low. Actually, no, I changed my mind. I wanted it in sopranos. Because I imagine here we're going quiet and having the other parts just kind of doing some oohs or ahs in the background, and then it'll sit quite nicely there for the sopranos. Probably some block harmonies here, and then some some sort of block harmony solution towards the end. Okay, are you with me so far?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just me thinking what's an appropriate range here, spreading it out again. So I've already kind of roughly mapped out where everything could go, and then as I start arranging it properly, I might choose to change it because I found that actually, this doesn't work as well as I wanted to. I think this will be, this will be okay here. Right. So let's say I've now distributed my melody and I'm ready to move on to the next phase. What would be the next phase? What do you think?
Harmonies.
Harmonies, yeah. So now that I've decided who sings the melody, I then have to choose, right, what does everyone else sing? And you can do this any which way you want. I tend to start with the loud bit because it gives me something to work towards. So this is my loud bit. Won't you let me see beneath your beautiful? I will then do, so I already decided I want to have block harmonies here. So I'll just map them out exactly like I said. I'll be, okay, well, the harmony here is D, E, G, A. This is just from the track. So I'll maybe starting from let, because the preceding phrase is anticipated, and we'll deal with that maybe going into it. But I know that, okay, if my altos are going to be on the F sharp, that's the third, which means I then need to fill in the chord around it with the D and the A. And then I can literally move them all up to fill in the next chord. And then, again, I'll just do it thinking what's in the middle and what goes around it. And it's just me distributing the triad, essentially. And it's just me writing. And now here comes a non-chord note. And then I've got a few options. Something like that might sound good if we're still going for that gospel kind of sound. In this case, the F sharp will then replace the G in the triad. And yeah, same as before. Here, now it goes down to D. In this case, that would, if I just filled in the chord, it might be like that. But that can clash a little bit because you've got that semitone between the C, the sharp, and the D. So I maybe lower the C sharp, so I get this effect of them singing in thirds. So we get this solution. Let me just turn on the metronome so you can hear it with a click. D. And I know that's going to sound fine. Again, just do the same thing again. And this is kind of where, you're just kind of filling in the blanks. If you've already decided what the harmony is, you're essentially either filling in blanks or deciding how to deal with the passing notes, which is any note that isn't part of the chord. So far, that's wrong. That should be an F sharp. Like so. Okay, so now I know that I'm going towards this chord. And I'm trying to decide how am I dealing with these passing notes. And then I have I'm already, that's one solution. But then maybe that sounds a little weak. And I'd rather do something that sounds a little bit stronger. I'm just thinking out loud now, essentially, because dealing with passing notes is not an exact science. There's all sorts of different ways you can do it. And sometimes I just have to kind of to think about it. But I think here, if I see a descending line like this, and I know that the sopranos are going to be quite close to it, I might just put them in unison, like so. Do, 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 like so. So that they're starting on the same note, and then maybe only have tenors harmonizing, like so, if they're there. Something like that. Going into unison and then breaking into harmonies can be quite effective. So in this case, I'll think, okay, well, they've already sung the chord, so the harmony has been established, which means at this point, I'll do it. So what note in a chord is it usually fine to leave out?
Sorry, say that again?
What note in a chord is it usually fine to leave out?
Oh, the fifth.
The fifth, yeah. So in this case, I decided maybe here, I'll do sopranos and altos in unison so that you get the effect of them being in unison and then splitting apart. So then all I need is the third, which I can then fill in because the tenors are already on a third here, which means just leaving them there. So you get this line. Like so. I could also... Now, I think, I'm happy with that. Sometimes just doing them always melody in the middle and harmonizing above and below. You might need to break out of that sometimes so it doesn't sound... It can get a little bit dreary if you do it for a long time. So that's when you might choose to have them in unison and then break into harmony, or just find a different kind of solution. I'll do it again. I'll mirror what I just did here. I'll have the altos and sopranos on that A. Again, now I'm leaving out the fifth, but that's fine. And in fact, it'll have the effect of a leading note going down. Okay, now I've done a bit of this just in 3-part harmony, but of course we need to have the basses here as well. Now, what sort of bass line could we perhaps go for here?
Do you mean like notation? Like
Well, just a general. Do I have something on every beat? Do I have them just harmonizing with the other parts? Well, so the original bass...
I'm thinking half notes or something too.
Okay, so quite long. Just like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so we're in the loud bit, which means you want something that's got a bit more like drive to it. In the original, it's... They're eighth notes, or quavers, so that there's quite a lot of drive to it. So we could then try and capture that by doing that in the arrangement. And I think at this point in the song, that will work quite nicely and it'll give it a bit more drive. We'll have to choose some sort of syllable solution here. We'll work on that in a minute, but what will effectively happen is... Maybe down an octave here. Like so.
So this is the chorus of the song, the big chorus.
This is the big chorus, yeah. So this is chorus number 2 in the structure. So here, I tend to, if I'm just using syllables, if I've got a loud bit, I tend to use da, because you get that nice big da. I just write it in. Again, it's really easy to just write in a couple of them and then copy them onto the rest. Lyrics. And I'm basically just doing what they did in the original. Drop down an octave there, perhaps, so that it got a nice little approach to that B. And now here, you don't want them to be doing da-da-das for a long time, so they can do it here. And then maybe here, you can then have them do words, so that you've already established one thing, but then you break it up, so you're not constantly doing the same thing. So in this case, I'll maybe copy what's happening in the other parts. First thing I'll do, actually, is I'll spread this out using the arrange function. So I'll cut this out like so. I'll mark up the staves I want it on. And let me just hide my thing at the top here. And I'll go... I always forget what this is because I always use the key command. Yeah, so note input, arrange. I need to mark these up again. Like so. And then I choose standard arrangement. I've never ever used any of the other ones. Do it. Boom. There, sorted out my parts without me having to do any work. And I'll just get rid of these chord symbols because I don't need them. So they're gone. So if I put the dynamic in all parts, just listen to what we have so far. This is in 4 parts. So there. And that sounds fine. Do you have any comments?
Just a question. When you have harmony above the melody, is that just a conducting issue to make sure it's not the melody isn't drowned out by the harmony?
Yeah, that's a rehearsal thing. But if you've very intelligently spread out the melody, you will have put it in a place where the altos in this case, will naturally want to sing a bit louder anyway. And yeah, you just if you happen to have a few sopranos or just hitting it out of the park with their voices, then just tell them to like just a little bit. But it should ideally, if you've mapped it out, it should ideally not be a problem.
Hey.
Okay, when I listened to it, I decided that perhaps it would be a bit more interesting to have the basses do this line. See beneath your beautiful, just using their own. So I'll just copy this here and just change the notes. Like so. Just so that, again, I'm just breaking up the structure a bit. I'm not just having them do the same thing over and over. Da 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 da. See beneath your beautiful. Da 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 da. And I'll probably lengthen these just a little bit because right now you have an awkward gap. You don't want that. Boom. Now I've not given them a place to breathe either, and I tend to think about stuff like breath. So I'll decide, okay, well this is a good place for them to breathe. So I'll give them a little breath here. And I'll do the same thing here. Again, try and keep it. Don't do similar but slightly different. That's a trap. Like so. And now I said that I wanted to have them do. Oh, what did I just do? Oh, I just destroyed something. Hang on. This happens when you're not thinking. What was my harmony again here? So it's just the same as before, wasn't it? Yeah, that's good. Now I'll just want to copy again. I'll just have them do a bass line. I'm not going to be doing anything too crazy, but I'll have them do exactly what the other parts are doing, words and rhythm wise. So I'll be just switching it up a bit, giving them something that's different from just doing da-da-das. And then maybe here again. Now, this is interesting because this A is not in the G chord, which means I then have to decide how do I want this to be rendered. Now, I like in this case, if I were to think of it as replacing the G, I would get this effect, which can be quite spicy. I can...
What is that?
So that's me playing essentially a G triad, except I've replaced the G with an A. Maybe something like that. Again, now I'm just harmonizing above and below and trying to decide what am I going to do with the extra note, the A, which is in the melody, which means I do need to have it in. I think maybe it'll be interesting to have... I think it is quite a nice effect to have a major second at the top like this. It sounds a bit crunchy, but not too crunchy. So here, essentially, I'll be doing a G triad, but I'll be replacing the G with the A, so I get this effect. Oops. And then going up, like so. Not going up with the tenors, because it's a big jump. Like so. Thinking about the voice leading. And hang on. And then I'll want to put the bass underneath, just doing the same rhythm probably. Just kind of writing stuff out and filling in. So in this case, that'll be, oops. Hang on, no, I selected all parts. I meant to just select the 3. Like so. There. Now these to me look like fairly singable lines. And then I'll just like so. Get rid of the chord symbols because we don't need those. Boom, they're gone. And then we have kind of the same phrase again. And then why not just do exactly what we've done before to finish off the chorus. Dun. And then here, okay. So now in the song, they changed the melody slightly, which is fine. I think I'll perhaps play it safe here and have the melody exactly like before. Because if it's one thing you can count on, if you have a phrase that's slightly different, half of your singers are going to do the wrong phrase. And then we'll just finish up with our block harmonies. I'll just fill in all parts at once. Actually, maybe up the octave in I've not found a quick solution for this when I've got the phrase written out and I'm just writing in individual chords, because Sibelius tends to want to have in, if I just play in the whole phrase, it just tends to want to make every note the same length. So I have to like go back and forth between the keyboard. And now we've got a D, which is the 4th, which means... So in this case, I have the altos with the melody going down to the D, which I know on an A chord is going to clash. What I can do is I can have them go up to an F sharp instead, so that the tenors are essentially taking over the melody for just the end of that phrase. And, oops. Let's have... yeah, we'll have this effect. It's okay to switch the melody to a different part in the middle of the phrase if you find that it's just not quite working, keeping it where it is. This is all in 4 parts now. Again, I'm just now. This is like just the copying out part. You're just moving stuff into place. I keep doing the wrong key command. Like so. And then I'll want to use the same bass line as before. Like so. Copying this out. Sorry, it's just right now you're just watching me essentially just copying stuff out. I hope it's not too boring. We'll move on to a different section of the song in a minute. Like so. Okay. So now I've basically, this is a very typical pop arrangement style when you've got bass line and then 3 parts harmonizing above. Let's just listen to this. And I'm not going to do the transition in yet because I find transitions are a little bit easier to do after you've thought out each section between them. So I'm not going to do quite this initial phrase. But yeah, let's just listen to this and make sure that it sounds good. And then I'll have some sort of line. Okay. Does that sound okay so far?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now, if this was me, I would then be listening to each part individually for voice leading. Are you just confident enough with your experience that you know they all work at this point, or?
Yeah, so I've done this long enough that I'm thinking about the voice leading at the same time as I'm writing out the parts. So I've already thought about the voice leading while I was deciding on what each part would do, which is something you get used to. So I already know that all of this should work. Okay, so that is my loud chorus. Let's go to one of the quieter sections. Let's talk about the very first one. When you've got a really quiet section, it's useful to just do block harmonies. Not have too much motion in the other parts. You don't need it. It's you can get away with very simple stuff when you're arranging for voices. So in this case, I would probably just choose, okay, well, the harmonies are D, E minor, G, A, and it just keeps looping. I would choose maybe a low high note for the sopranos and arrange from the top down. What would be a nice low high note for the sopranos?
A low high note.
Maybe the okay, so I shouldn't really be saying high note at all. What's a nice low note for the sopranos? That's not going to be awful low.
In the D chord?
Yeah, in the D chord.
F sharp?
F sharp, yeah, exactly. I agree. F sharp, and then you just harmonize down like that. Good. And then you just do closest possible motion to go to the next chord. In this case, it'll just be putting every part up one. Like so. And then for G, just put the altos down to D and you get a G chord. And then here you can do a suspended fourth and you can just keep the G at the top as well. So in this case, I would move the tenors down, keep the sopranos and altos in place, and then have the altos go down to their F sharp. That's just me suspending the fourth just for one beat. Let's see how that sounds. Again, just arranging it out using the arrange function. Just write everything on one staff and then spread it out outwards. And this should be probably double P. That's okay. Now, I'm going to lengthen all the notes. I think this seventh that I kept in the sopranos, that G is going to be a seventh on the A, which can work, but it might sound, for pop music, bit much, even though for a lot of music it wouldn't be much. I also have to decide where are they going to breathe. And I think maybe a good place to breathe, I'd stagger it out, I think. So that when they're changing notes, here for instance, there's a good place to put a breath. Here's a good place to put a breath. So that they can carry on into the next phrase. I'm going to assume that we'll just be looping this like so. And I'll be thinking about the phrasing the whole time. Because if I then put this over here, you get that nice motion like so. Then here. And if I'm trying to not have them all breathe at the same time, maybe put the breath here. Like so. And then that can be carried over to the next bar. So what I did now was I just chose a voicing. Chose a voicing for this. I know that it's for a 4-bar loop, which is very common in pop music. And then I decide, right, where do they breathe? And then I map it out so that you get smooth motion. Let's listen to this. That kind of sounds right, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you agree?
It doesn't matter that you lose a note in the chord for the 8th note rest here and there.
No, it doesn't, because you'll have natural reverb in the performance space or on the microphones that will kind of even that over. You could also write stagger breathe if you want that, but I think stagger breathing usually isn't necessary because reverb kind of takes care of that. It's not really that obvious when you're writing into software, but it does take care of these gaps more than you think. Okay, so now I'm basically just looping these throughout, and it'll be like so, and this one over here. Now I could put in some call and response here. That might be, a good idea, but I'll not worry so much about it just yet. Right now, I'm just trying to get something that kind of works quickly together. Thinking about the phrasing. Always put in slurs if you can. Just make it very, very clear where everyone's singing and breathing. And I maybe I'll just go for an ooh here. Oog. Ooh. And just write them in, stretch them out so they fill up the entire note, like so. They could just do this for ages. This would be a really, really easy line to just sing over and over. And essentially, if you look at how much each part has to move to be able to fill in those 4 chords, they all basically stick around maybe a third. Very little motion going up and down. It's going to sound very, very smooth and like a string pad. Let's not worry about call and response just yet. We can perhaps put this in a bit later. Now, when the tenors take over the melody here, of course now we have the option of a bass line because the basses were singing the melody before. So then we take advantage of that and we can just have long notes. Get us quiet. We don't want anything too big and broad, so just put them down. Give them a little breath, actually. Here. Dun, dun. That's that G, like so. And here, maybe thinking, okay, so they can sing 2 bars and then breathe. Like so. And I tend to write in breaths using just rests. You can choose to do it, using comma marks. It's up to you. And then here as well, it's quiet. Maybe just have ooh still. Do you have any other ideas?
No, not for here.
No, here. No. It's completely fine to just kind of save your energy. I find with a lot of vocal arrangements you have to pace yourself the whole time. because you only have voices, which means that there's a limit to how loud you can go. If you have a fully produced track, you can always put more stuff on it. With a cappella arrangements, not so much. You have to pace yourself. So I think there's nothing wrong with just having them do oohs. In fact, I'll just have them fill in the chord, and I'll just have them so sopranos were on a G here, so maybe just have them go to an F sharp, and then the F sharp stays like so. So easy. And I'm going to get rid of that slur in a moment, but I'll just fill in the chord using the altos. And they're on a C sharp, so they'll go up to the D, like so, and then they'll stay on the D probably. Yeah, and it should sound fine. Looking at where the tenors are, they're singing on that A. Yeah, this should sound great. Let's listen to just what it sounds like. Maybe put all the parts in key here. Like so. And then this line is actually a backing line. I didn't write that in here, but this line, the O, is a backing line. So let's put that in the other parts. Oops. Come on. There. And that can be very easily just harmonized with the sopranos and altos. So maybe just harmonizing it very easily, thinking, okay, we're on a G chord. I'll just harmonize it in with a third down. Like so. Nothing wrong with thirds. Thirds tend to sound fine even if you're using non-chord tones. And then, now at the moment, the tenors aren't really doing anything after they finish their melody here. So let's have them, in this case, I can tell that I'm going to be missing the third for a lot of this. Let's put the third in. There. That's an F sharp. Yeah, that's fine. Let's lengthen this note. Actually, yeah, that's fine. And then we'll have these guys maybe starting on the same notes as before, just harmonizing. Yeah. Cool. So all I've done, I took a backing line from the recording, harmonized it in thirds, and when the tenors were done with their melody, they were done with their job, I then made them do a harmony note so that I'm filling in the note that's missing from the harmony. Does this make sense? Yeah. It's whenever one part has a break, ideally something should happen in a different part. Now I can just double it, have this happen again, do it similarly. And here they end up with a slightly different voicing here, but that's fine. I can actually have them because that phrase ends on that B and that phrase ends on that D. But they're okay, just put them down there. The only note we'll be missing out from the chord is the fifth. And as we've established, the fifth is not super important, so can leave it out. Again, just phrasing this all together like so. Yeah, I'm just kind of filling in the blanks, as it were. I've decided on the harmony. I've not done anything that's outrageous or weird or, particularly demanding just yet. I might choose... Okay, so I'm not going to go through every little bit of phrasing for the whole song, but essentially here, I want to maybe give them a breath between these bars so that they can carry on into that F sharp. But let's not worry about that. Let's just listen to what we've got for the B section so far. I mean, sounds right, doesn't it?
Yeah.
There's nothing particularly outrageous or, you know, should say, there's nothing too crazy happening just yet. But it sounds fun. It sounds like choral music. Okay, we'll have to invent some sort of transition here. Now, going into the chorus, even though we're still doing it quietly, we should still probably have a bit more movement now. What would be a way of establishing some movement going into this chorus? Any ideas?
Something in the bass, like a walking
Something
bass.
in the bass? Yeah, we'll have, I think maybe just having them go, you know, something along the lines of... Just something to give it a bit more driving force. And then maybe we could literally have them You know, when you have club tracks, they tend to have a bass beat on every beat, and they tend to use something called a side chain, which is whenever the bass drum happens, everything else kind of gets cut away for a bit, and then it comes back, so you get this kind of thumping effect. We could replicate this in the voices by having them go so it's open, but then they close it on the M, in harmonies. Do you see what I mean? Gives it a bit more movement. Not necessarily have to be loud. Again, just something that gives a bit more movement, so it feels like it's not static. And now I'll look at the melody and be okay. So they're definitely going to be singing that that F sharp, which means the third is covered, so I can just fill in the roots and the fifth. In fact, I can just have them moving like this. Now I've got parallel moving fifths between the bass and the tenor, but that's fine because this is pop music and it's not a problem for pop music. They're on the G, which means I just fill in a triad perhaps, and they end up on E. Here again, I can do this thing called the suspended fourth, where I temporarily delay the third by having it as the fourth. In this case, I might have the tenors and the basses together on the A, and the altos on D and then C sharp, like so. And now, while I was doing that, I was also thinking, how do I make them move as little as possible? I could even, because I later on decided that I wanted the bass to drop down an octave, so it goes up there and then down an octave and then back to the D, which is a nice effect, and then coupled with that resolution here. So if we have something like, say, you might have to then write an instruction about what you want. But I was thinking I could have this sidechain effect. Not so it turns into some sort of weird, I don't know, some weird ethnic music. Just Let's listen to this just on its own. MP. Okay, so now I realize that maybe having that C sharp could then clash with that D, which I didn't think about before. So to avoid that, you can just have them stay on the D. It's very common in pop music to not resolve the fourth if you've got a suspended chord. You just keep them on that third. So you just keep them on the fourth, so that you're not resolving it. It's very common. And then I can just loop that. Again, this is very simply arranged. I haven't written in any breaths. Maybe I tend to maybe not have them breathe right at the end of the bar. Maybe breathe right before the fourth beat. You could get maybe just so that it's not just the same all the time. Maybe emphasize the 2 and the 4. This is good for pop music as well. So that you're emphasizing the backbeat. Like so. Just another little detail. Little details like this are good to use in vocal arranging. Cool. And I'm just deciding, okay, maybe I'll just do this for the whole chorus. I could, decide I want to put in a counter melody or so later on, but essentially I can just have them do this and just change here because the harmony changes slightly. So then it gets a B minor, and then D, and then G, and then A. Okay, well that's reflected in the bass line now. Here, well, the closest harmony notes would be, maybe I'll have them on the B, so they're in octaves with the basses, but that's fine. And we got the third. And here, let's put these guys down, and these guys up on the third. I'm just looking at what's the harmony, what notes do I need that are in this chord, and that just comes from music theory. It's just knowing that, okay, well, it's a D major chord. Okay, well, that consists of D, F sharp, and A. Okay, got to make sure that those notes are covered, and if I have to leave one out, I can leave out the fifth generally. And here, voice leading, actually, and then I'm thinking, well, I guess it's fine. I'll just keep that. Yeah. And then copy this over there. Like so. And that is kind of, it's not terribly interesting arranging exactly, but it works. Kind of works. Again, I'll have to know then that even though maybe the backing parts sound a little bit loud at the moment, Sibelius does have a tendency to make the soprano part quiet for some reason. I don't know why. So I'll just put it up slightly. Yeah, but I know that with a live group of singers, this would probably sound completely fine. Okay, so now, are we happy so far? Any questions? No?
Is the little the lead in of "Would You Let," is that low for the sopranos to come through?
It's low, and I can probably change that. I think, yeah, this is a bit low, and I think I'll probably change it something like maybe because I know the harmony's in A major. I could probably make it E. That will probably get the desired effect. It is fine to change the melody slightly if you have to. In this case, because I think the rest of the chorus will sit nicely in the soprano part, I'll probably just change that. I think, okay, here's what we'll do. We'll find a way to transition over here. I think we'll have this, but I'm going to try in block harmonies. So we get a little pause here, and then the sopranos get this line on their own. Maybe put a little staccato mark here. I'll shorten this this G. Okay, so we're on a G chord, and then I know, okay, well, my basses are down here, my tenors are here. Okay, so what am I missing? I'm missing the third, and maybe I can put in the fifth. in this case, the tenors are going to be on the sixth, which is a, if you saw the episode on advanced harmony, that's what we would call an allowable extension. It shouldn't clash. So I'll just fill in using what I just said. And then I'll have, probably to avoid the other parts now, because the melodies is not exactly in a high range for the tenors, a good way to avoid the other parts taking the attention away is you keep them as static as possible and you just have the tenors move. Oops. What are you doing? There. So here I'll do, essentially, I'll just put the other parts in a close harmony notes. In this case, I'll want to have altos on C sharp and sopranos on E, because those are notes that are in A major. And then I'll just keep them there while the tenors are doing their line. And in this case, I would be, momentarily doubling the third, but it's not important. Oops. My computer's lagging a lot today, I must say. Okay, so now I spread this out. So, and there. Marking them using the arrange function. There. And then here I'll just, again, I've got my idea of the closest possible harmonies. Actually, what did I do here? I didn't choose any harmony notes. Okay, well, let's change that. So I'll just do those again. Like so. Okay, so now let's listen to the transition from this pre-chorus to the chorus. Oops. Okay, so now I don't think that changed melody works as well as I want it to.
Yeah, I had wondered if you would give it to somebody else, just those few notes, to keep the melody.
Yeah, I'm wondering if what I'll do is I'll spread out this intro phrase. So what I'll do, put it here. Like so. And then they'll change to their backing parts. So effectively, I'm just doing a block harmony with the other parts then leading into. And, in a sense, I now. Yeah, like that. And then. Actually, let's have them anticipate the chord. So I'm putting the D chord on the forehand. Oops. Come on. Put that in all parts. That transition might sound a little bit nicer. Yeah, I think that works better. Questions, comments?
I think that lets the original melody show through better.
Yeah, I mean it's not there, I've kind of I've I've not kept the melody as such, but I've kept the harmony and I've kept the rhythm. And I think for someone who knows the song, they will kind of almost insert the melody there.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's kind of there.
It's close enough that anyone listening who's familiar with the song will think that they're hearing it, even if they're not. It's almost like a bit of an illusion. And this is a really good trick if you have a line with a lot of difficult jumps. Say later on, when we got to I wanna climb inside your ivory tower, that line. Here, now I again wanted to do this in block harmonies, and I'd want this to be like quite loud. In fact, looking at it now, I'd probably want to have that E, that F sharp, and that G. I'd probably want to have it in the tenors, and I'd want to put everyone as high in their range as possible, because I want this phrase to be double F. Double F. I'd want to harmonize, so I'll consider this being the tenor note actually. Harmonize up, and then pick the highest bass note that'll work. Like so. And then I'll do it in block harmonies. It's going to be like a big climax. Maybe I'll have some sort of interplay between the parts so that whenever there's a gap, it'll be filled in by someone. In the original track, they have like strings going all over the place and stuff, but of course we don't have that available to us. Oops. So I'll want to... Now, because the tenors have the melody, and in this range, they will definitely be heard. Even put the basses up on that high D, that'll be... Actually, keep them on that... If I keep them on that A, then that means that they're then doing the melody for two notes there. And then... Again, I'll just have... This will be my three top parts. And this will be quite loud and piercing. And with the basses, I'll just choose what would be a good nice. Maybe I'll probably just have them do what the I'll have them sing in octaves with the altos actually. Like so. And again, I've looked at range, decided, okay, the tenors will have the melody here because it means that I get all parts right at the top of the range. It's going to be piercing and loud and intense, but it's going to sound like quite thrilling. Let's get rid of these chord symbols. So you get this effect. Oops. And then there's a little space for some, a little bit of counterpoint. Something like that. Just a little detail in the bass. I'm gonna climb inside your ivory tower, I'll hold your hand. Something like that. And then I could even have that doubled in the sopranos and altos because they're not the main parts, and just have the tenors stay on their note the whole time. And that's just from knowing that in that range, tenor singers up on a G, if they can sing, and you know, if you've got a good choir, they should be able to blast out that G pretty strongly. I then know I can have some backing parts happen, and they're still going to be ringing out quite nicely on that E. So let's say that I here have these guys, and again, not trying to draw too much attention away, just have them stay on the same note. Like so. And it'll have sort of the effect of call and response. Ivory tower. Oops. Because there was a gap, and when there's a gap, that's an invitation to counter melodies. Let's get the lyrics. Copy, paste. And then same thing again, exactly the same arrangement. Sorry, I'm hitting my I'm hitting my microphone sometimes. And then just spread that out. Cutting it out. I've written it in 4 parts on 1 clef. And then, oops, using the arrange function. The arrange function has saved me so much time. What did I do wrong? Did I write it in 5 parts at one point? Yeah, if it ends up looking weird, it's because you did something wrong and I did something wrong. Oh yeah, I see. So I wrote it in 5 parts here. That should not have happened. Are you with me so far? I realize this is a lot of me just essentially just doing it, but I hope what I'm doing makes sense. That it's yeah. Do tell me if it doesn't make sense, because I think a lot of the time I'm just thinking ahead and not even maybe saying what I'm doing, and I want to make sure that I tell you what I'm doing instead of just jumping ahead. Here, for instance, I'll know that okay, these guys need a breath somewhere. Okay, well, I think it'll be good for them to have a breath after their tower, so that they have a chance to do that next bit, and with renewed energy. Yeah, and they should be able to carry on. And then you can also indicate that you want them to carry on by doing, I forget what it's called, one of those essentially. It's called like an underscore, I think. Like so. And that'll indicate to them to just keep going, do not breathe. Their breath happens here, and then they carry on. Let's listen to this. And then maybe, so this next phrase will be falling is, yeah, we're getting up to A, B, that is going to be too high. So in this case, I will move the melody to the altos. But I do want to have a harmony above. I still want it to be, I think I still want it to just be in choral harmony. I want it to be all the same rhythms. So let's try, we're currently on an A chord, so we'll be maybe there. Yeah. Now I want to get my basses up on their high D maybe. So that essentially it'll be blasting it out full force. Yeah, that's what I'll do. So what I'm doing now, I'm keeping my A chord. I'm just moving the melody to the altos. So now we've got this situation with a harmony above and a harmony below again. Now I'm putting the basses quite high. But it's going to be quite loud and in your face, so it's fine. And here, this G chord, I now decided to replace my B, which is the third, with the A. It's fine if you've got, in pop music, they often do this thing where they will do, where they've left out the third and just replaced it with the 2 instead. It's not the only solution, but it's a solution that will work. Okay, same chord. And then I'll just do them in block harmonies. Think maybe just the same chord here. Oops. And then here. Okay. Keep. Yeah, I'll have just I'll have all parts except the altos just sing a G triad, and then the altos will be the only part moving, so they will draw the attention. You'll know that these guys are singing the melody. then probably on this K, I'll want to have that be the B minor chord. Like so. And I'll voice it out, just as I said before. I'll probably have tenors and altos on the same note, actually, so I get that chord. Okay, so I'll just spread that out. I've written that all in 4 parts, so I can just use my cutting it out and then spreading it out using the arrange function, like so. Okay, I've got to check how this sounds, but let me just get rid of the chord symbols, like so. Okay, I think I don't want the basses to go up here because I want to gradually cool it down. Maybe just have them go down there. Let's try that. No, absolutely not. Curse, what's wrong here? Oh yeah, I'm missing the B, of course. It sounds a little bit octavesy to me. I don't like that. Maybe I'll, you know what? I think I'll just have these guys gradually approach the B that's down there. So I'll just have... Maybe have it slightly quieter here. It's not quiet, it's still loud. Just a little step down. So we got this whole step going down. And then, okay, so we've decided this should probably be a quiet chorus. Now here, let's have, so I'm not going to do this phrase just yet because I want to think about where am I going to. And I think here, I'll probably want to do this chorus in block harmonies from the top down. So what that means is sopranos will have the melody and the other parts I'll just do a top down arrangement. So in this case, that let will be a D chord and I'll just see, okay, but on F sharp, I'm missing D and A from that chord. Okay. Just fill in. Whatever comes first, you put in. And then same thing here. E minor. Okay, well, I've got G, so I'm missing E and B. It's really quite nice. In fact, let's even make this double P. It's really quite nice when you have a whole choir singing the same words together, but they're singing them quietly. And so it's almost like this mysterious effect. So you get the full effect of the lyrics, but it's quiet. So, and again, keeping it in a range where this is possible. So in this case, well, you'll see it when it happens, but essentially because I already put the sopranos in what will be their lower range, if I'm doing a top to bottom arrangement like I did, where I've got my top notes and I'm arranging down, then most likely the other parts are also going to be in their low range. And if ever they're not, then you can do some voice leading stuff to fix it. So again, I'm just going to write this out. Oops. And here, because I've got the sopranos on a D and I will clash with the C sharp here, I'll just put the altos down to a B so that you get them in thirds. And that's just, again, knowing how to deal with extra or, added notes. Let me get rid of these chords and I'll show you. Where's the chord symbols? Spread these out. Now this is just a 3-part arrangement. because I'll want essentially just the bass line to be the same thing, just the bass note. Because I already chose the chord progression. I'll just know, okay, well, it's going to be D, E, G. And again, because in the previous versions of the chorus, I chose to have them go up to that A and then drop down an octave. Okay, I'll just do that again. Oops. Keep, if possible, same but... No, sorry, yeah. Same but slightly different is often causing problems. So in this case, I try to keep it as same as I can. Same notes, slightly different rhythms, but that's okay because they're now singing the lyrics. So in this case, it would sound, and this should sound kind of just like rich and nice. It just sounds fine, doesn't it? Any comments or suggestions or questions?
Nope.
All right. Cool. So we have 20 more minutes. Well, I'm not gonna write out the whole arrangement in those 20 minutes, and I don't want you guys to just be sitting around watching me do an arrangement the whole time. Okay, so what have we not dealt with yet? We've not done an intro. I tend to leave intros and outros till the end, because if I choose to invent like a counter melody or something, then I'll probably want to preserve that in the intro as well, so I get more use of it. But we have the first verse, pre-chorus, chorus. Okay, so we haven't done the second verse and second chorus. So what can we do to get a bit more movement in the second verse? What's something we could do?
Maybe have more syncopated rhythms in the backing vocals.
Yeah. So I would suggest putting more of a bass line in. I'd say you could have maybe some doos, but also whenever there's a gap in the melody, and there's quite a few gaps in the melodies, is a perfect opportunity to put in a bit of call and response. So here, for instance, you let all the girls go, and then there's a pause. You let all the girls go, you let all the girls go, makes you feel good, do, something like that. Whenever there's a break. So we see here, you let all the girls go, let all the girls go, something like that. Oops. Now I see here there might be a clash, but that's fine. We'll work it out in a minute. This is my rhythmic idea. And again, this is more like me arranging by ear and then writing out what I invented by ear. And then I'll have to check if it works harmonically and maybe move some stuff around. Makes you feel good. Makes you feel good. Makes you feel good. Yeah, and then I'll respond to that. Makes, so that would be makes you feel good. Makes you feel good. And then maybe some sort of counter line after here. But anyway, so that would be more. I have an idea, and this is just something, a call and response type of line that I would choose kind of more just by ear. And then I'll decide, okay, well, visually, it looks to me like it's happening where the melody isn't. Now I got to make sure that I'm doing bits of harmony as well. Let's imagine that the bass is now going to be doing more of a bass line, similar to what they're going to be doing in the chorus. And repeat. This is by now we've already given the basses a bit of melody. Now it's time for them to do their job, which is to do the bass line. So we're going to have them do just a bass line on the beats. We'll have before they get to their counter melody, we'll just have them do ooze in the background, because we already have a bit of movement from the bass. So we can just have them fill in the harmony, no problem. In this case, altos can be above sopranos. So sopranos will be on a D and then tenors on an A. So now I'm just doing the same thing, top-down arrangement. I've got an F sharp, I've got a D. So what am I missing? I'm missing an A, I'm missing a D. Okay, fill that in. And then what will I be doing next? Well, I'll then want probably... I could just have, again, this will be more of an extension, but I can just have the soprano stay on their D, because that will be an okay extension on the E minor. It'll just be a minor seventh in the scale, so it'll work. And then I'm missing the G. Okay, we'll put the G in, like so. And then I'll need, on the G here, I'll need a B. Okay. And then keep the sopranos on the same note. Okay, just filling in notes. Okay, so now I get to my little counter thing that I invented. First, let's just listen to them on their own, so I can quickly hear if they're going to be atrocious or if there's some sense to them. Okay, I'm just going to get rid of this because I'm not sure if this line is going to be so nice for the vocals. Okay, so I could tell that there's bits where there's some clashes, some potential clashes. It's going to be there. It's not too bad because we're on a D chord and the altos are on the E, which is like the added ninth. So it'll be that kind of effect, which isn't, that's not atrocious. That's a very common sound in pop music. Okay, so let's see if it sounds okay if I just fill in the harmony. And in this case, I'll just think, okay, this is the line. Let's fill in what's missing. Well, what's missing here? The third is missing the B. Okay, fill that in. And here we'll need a third again. Okay, so we're anticipating, right. So this is an anticipated note, so that's why I leave that D in. This chord kind of belongs to the next bar, really. But that's fine. Work on my lyrics. May you let all the rules go. Makes you feel good. Oops. Right, again, using the arrange function. I do tend to write stuff out on one staff because it just helps me scan visually and be like, okay, does this look correct to me? And that's just because I'm a piano player, and so I like to see everything on one staff. Let's see what this sounds like so far. This should actually be tied. Oops. This should be tied. Like so. Maybe a little breath here, so they've got breath before their counter melody. Let's have them do ooze So. I mean, that sounds like it should work to me. So let me harmonize the next bit. Okay, so the altos are on F sharp. Good. And then all I need to put in is what, the D. Okay, D. And then maybe here I can make. Actually, I can change the melody slightly because we'll be missing the third, and I don't really want a clash. So I'll just move them up. Oh, good, don't it? That's kind of okay, just to make sure that it's harmonized. So I just moved, because the melody was an F sharp, which would be the 9th on the E minor, and I think in this case it would be tricky for me to put in the 3rd and not have it sound quite scrungy, because it will be a minor 2nd clash. So I'll just move the melody up, and with the other parts it should sound fine. Right, what am I missing? I could put the tenors on E, I think. In this case, because they're in the same unit as the sopranos, I think you would get the effect of parallel moving fifths here. So I would instead just keep them on the D. Oops, why do you not? Again, the D is an allowable. It's not really a good description, but it's what would be considered a nice sounding extension on this chord, and that means I can also have them stay on that for the G, because they're already harmonizing using the 5th and the 3rd of that chord. So it will sound nice and smooth. If you can just keep as many notes as you can from chord to chord, it will sound really smooth. Okay, let's listen to this. And then I'll want to invent some sort of line over here. Again, just taking the gaps and filling them in with something. Okay. Any questions about what I just did?
No.
Nope. Happy? Okay. We've been here nearly for 2 hours. I think, I haven't finished all of it yet, but most of the rest of it would be basically a lot of the same stuff. Who's got the melody? Do we have a bass line? And then am I going to put in a counter melody in that case? Make sure that there's a gap, for instance, which I did here. There's some other stuff you can do when it comes to counter melodies, but I'm not going to worry about that right now because it's been 2 hours and it might do for one video. But yeah. Basically, this is kind of what I do when I'm when I'm arranging. Is I'll be going through it like this and decide who sings the melody here, what are the backing parts doing. And with a cappella arranging, a lot of the time it can be quite simple and it's still going to sound fine. But notice how I am putting in dynamics while I'm working. I'm always thinking about the phrasing. I'm always thinking about the voice leading, so that you get smooth lines in all parts.
When you have backing oohs, occasionally I'll see that I have parallel fifths, but they're between the oohs and the melody.
Okay.
Does it matter so much if it's just the oohs?
Listen to it, and if it sounds weird to you, then yes, it matters. But if it doesn't sound weird to you when you're listening to it, then it's fine. It's this thing about parallel moving fifths is it's very much like an old-fashioned thing. They can stick out, but they can also sound, effective depending on the music. So don't be so concerned about that. That's more like a guideline for, if you want to make sure it sounds as smooth as possible, where there's no part that sticks out more than any other, then that's a good thing to keep in mind. But sometimes that's not what you're going for.
The other question I had was in some of the block harmonies, there's a lot of parallel motion. Is that okay more in pop than maybe in a traditional choral piece?
So what do you mean exactly?
Well, like all the parts they'll follow the melody. They'll all go up. They'll all go down.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't worry about parallel motion at all. Like it's a lot. You have to remember that a lot of pop music isn't really arranged as strictly as what I'm doing here. A lot of it will be I'm singing this note, you just harmonize with me in parallel motion. That is very commonly done in pop music, so I wouldn't worry about it. What I would worry about is make sure that you've distributed the melody so that it sits in a good part of people's voice for whatever dynamic you have at the moment. And then it's a good idea, I think, to decide on the harmony you want to use in your arrangement before you start giving out the parts to choose what notes people are going to sing. Because if you've already mapped out your harmony, it's a lot easier for me to be like, okay, well, this is the D harmony. Okay, what notes am I missing? That note, that note. Then to have to kind of always be inventing the harmony as you go along. You see what I mean? When it comes to stuff like doubling thirds, having parallel moving fifths, that's more of a fine-tuning thing. That's something you can look out for when you've done it. It's not massively important, but it is kind of it's kind of the next step. It'll be when you're trying to get your arrangement one step further. You're trying to get it just a step up. So focus on making sure everyone's got something fun to do. Everyone's got a bit of harmony. Everyone's got a bit of melody. Everyone's, got something interesting, because, the best performers are performers who aren't bored. Okay. I think I'm going to just call it for today. I might finish this. Might finish this on my own. Would you be interested in seeing me work more on this song, or should we look at something else next time?
It's always nice to see something else. I wouldn't mind seeing the completed version, but not necessarily working on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'll have a think about it, and I might end up just completing this on my own. But effectively, a lot of what I do is going to be just an extension of what I've been doing so far. Anyway, guys, thank you for joining me. I hope you learned something, and I look forward to seeing you all again for something else. If you've got something specific you want me to cover, then please let me know.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Knut.
Yeah, thank you for joining me. Hope you enjoyed it.
I did, yeah. I've been seeing your arrangements for years, so it's good to see how you break it down and work. Really interesting. Thank you.
Cheers. All right, guys. Well, I'll call it here, and I'll speak with you soon.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.